Hello and welcome. My name is Mike Gillum, Product Specialist for the Acumatica Construction Edition. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you a demonstration video on the Construction Edition's integration with Procore Project Management. The integration enables you to easily export and/or synchronize records between Acumatica and Procore Project Management for the customer, vendor, project, cost codes, and more. The Procore integration workspace within Acumatica makes mapping data easy. With the synchronization process, you can seamlessly update Procore fields with changes to those corresponding fields in Acumatica. The export feature works across all the records exported to Procore from Acumatica or linked between the two systems. Let's jump right into the product. So inside of Acumatica, you can see that I've already logged into the system and I'm sitting here on the Procore integration workspace. And I've got my menu, my full menu items here around the integration. The first thing I want to do is look over here under preferences. Let's click on the Procore integration link. And this is going to tell us that we've already connected to Procore. So I've got my Procore credentials already set up here, my company, the API URL that I'm linking to, all that's already been set up. This is the first step in getting the two products to speak to each other. If we go back to the integration window, other things you can do under preferences are things like cost code and change order integration preferences. But what I want to focus on is profiles and processes. So if I click on the Procore export mapping window, this is going to give us a list of all the data that can be mapped from Acumatica Construction Edition to Procore. So starting with vendor and customer, standard cost codes, projects, subjobs, project budgets, all the way down through vendor insurance and commitment insurance can be mapped from Acumatica to Procore. Once you've mapped that information, it exists in both places. For example, vendor and customer. If I click on vendor and customer, or any one of these entities that I want to map, I just click on it and I click map. Once I get to that next window, in this case, I've already got the tab open, I've got vendors and customers sitting here in Acumatica that I wanted to sync to Procore. So I come in here, I pick and choose the ones I want, or I select all, and I click export. It then, if you look over to the right, automatically creates a Procore record ID. So I can click on that record ID. It's going to open up a window with the Procore company now and a link to Procore. So if I click on that link, we're looking at that same vendor that was in Acumatica now inside of Procore. So that information now exists in both products. So I've got this vendor and whatever customers I need in Procore available to me coming right from Acumatica. Once I've got my vendors and customers as well as other items mapped, it's very easy then to sync those. If I make a change in Acumatica to one of my vendors, I don't have to remap that entire vendor. I can just sync the companies or projects or vendor and commitment insurances with Procore. For example, let's go make a change to a vendor inside of Acumatica. So let's go to my trusty go-to vendor here. And we're going to make an easy change. We're going to change the last four digits of this phone number to 6777. I'm going to go ahead and save and close that. Once I save and close that, I'm going to go back to my Procore integration. And now if I click on Sync Companies with Procore, because I've already mapped this vendor to Procore, and now I've clicked on Sync, it knows that there's been a change with this vendor in Acumatica that needs to be synchronized to Procore. So if I've made multiple changes, I would see all of them sitting here, and I can synchronize one at a time or synchronize all. But even better would be to utilize the automation scheduling feature in Acumatica and set up a schedule to automatically sync these companies. Let's say 6 p.m. every evening or midnight every night. You want to sync any changes from Acumatica to Procore. Simply set up a schedule, and Acumatica Construction Edition will take care of the rest. In this case, let's go ahead and synchronize this vendor. I'm just going to go ahead and hit synchronize. Just takes a second to process. Once that's done, let's go look at that vendor now in Procore. So I'm clicking on that Procore link again. And now we've still got the 2222 there, but let's just click refresh on that screen. And now we're seeing the 6777. So the change we made in Acumatica was synchronized with Procore, automatically updated this vendor. Very simple, very easy to get that information updated. Let's go back into Acumatica, back to Procore integration. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was Procore import mapping. So if I click on import mapping, I can import things from Procore like project budgets, purchase orders, subcontracts, even commitment change orders can be created in Procore and imported to Acumatica. Let's go take a look inside of Procore. So I've opened up the project that I've synced between Acumatica and Procore, and now I've clicked on the commitments project tool inside of Procore. So I can see here all of the purchase orders and or subcontracts that I've created for this project inside of Procore. I can also see which of these I've already synced with Acumatica. So it provides a nice visual indicator. This green chain link here shows us that this subcontract or this purchase order has already been synced with Acumatica. So very nice feature there. If I go back to Acumatica now, and let's look at subcontracts, for example, and let's just click map. So first thing I need to do is pick my project. So now I can see everything that's already been synced and or mapped from Procore to Acumatica for this project when it comes to subcontracts. So I can see those subcontracts that I've already imported and that have created a subcontract Acumatica number for us. There's a couple here, subcontract D and this redesigned pavers, that I have not yet imported into Acumatica from Procore. But the ones I have automatically create this link. So we can click on that link, and it's then going to open up that subcontract for us right inside of Acumatica, inside of the project that we've mapped and synced with Procore. So now that I've got this subcontract open, I can take that off a hold. I can come up here to actions. I could approve or reject if I had the rights to do so, email the subcontract, enter an AP bill, complete it, cancel it. All the things I can do in subcontracts within Acumatica are now available to us. So that subcontract or purchase order can be created in Procore and then imported directly to Acumatica. Very simple, very easy to do so. If we go back to the Procore integration now, we can do the same thing with project budgets, right? So if I go to back to Procore and let's pull up the budget for this project. It's going to take just a second to open that up for us. So now we're looking at the budget that was sent from Procore to Acumatica, or it could have been created in Acumatica and sent to Procore. If I want to make a change to that budget inside of Procore, I can do that and then update the budget inside of Acumatica. For example, this concrete forming material line item. I can come in here and make a change. Let's say it's less money than before, so $5,600. So I've now made that change to that line item inside of Procore, concrete forming material. And now I'm going to go ahead and lock the budget inside of Procore. I'm going to come back to Acumatica, and I'm going to import a project budget. So if I go to project budget, click map, only thing I have to do is select that project now inside of Acumatica. It's bringing up all that information from Procore to Acumatica. I can see my Procore record ID. I've got a couple options here. I can overwrite budget lines in Acumatica. I can choose not to. But if I click on that now, I can import to Acumatica, and it's going to automatically update the budget in Acumatica with that change we made from Procore. So it's going through all of the transactions. It's looking to see whatever changes were made inside of Procore that is then going to now make to the Acumatica project. So now that processing is completed, it's processed 14 line items. I can go ahead and click close. And now let's go into the construction workspace, into projects, and let's open up this project inside of Acumatica and take a look at that cost budget line item of concrete forming, material line item, our budget changed to $5,600 just like we changed it in Acumatica or in Procore. So it's automatically imported the budget change from Procore to Acumatica, keeping both projects in sync with each other. So back to the integration window. That's really what I wanted to share with you guys today. Lots more around the integration. Obviously, all the things we can map and import and export from Procore to Acumatica, from Acumatica to Procore, along with syncing that information. I hope you found this video useful. I'd like to thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you on future videos. Thanks again for joining me.